Okay, let's move on to chapter 22, here in verse 2. We get a little idea about the men who come to join up with David in the cave of Adullam. Now, the cave of Adullam is about 12 or 13 miles from Bethlehem. And in those areas, we are told that they have some absolutely mammoth caves. And there is unbelievably large number of caves where an unbelievably large number of people can hide. I mean, these things are mammoth. So David is hiding down there, and his family comes down there to be with him. But that's not all. There is also a large group of men that come to join David. They can see that God is no longer with King Saul, and they believe that even though David is in a cave, our chances are better with him in God's will than with King Saul out of God's will. Know what I mean? Now, I have a feeling that they straggled in maybe a few at first. Then maybe they came in tens. But the next thing you know, there are 400 men who have come to cast their lot with David. And look what it says about these men. It's very interesting. Verse 2 says that these men were in distress. And the Greek there means that they were under pressure. So they were in debt. These were those who were in or on the verge of bankruptcy. They were very discontented with their life. They were restless. They were frustrated. They were wanting something better in their life. And the Greek there carries this idea of them being embittered. So this is a motley crew that came to join David. And a very strange mixture of people who have decided to center their lives around David. And basically, folks, what they are saying is, David, here we are. You are our leader. We believe that you are God's man and that he will provide for us all. We are casting our lot with you. We will be loyal to you and fight for you. And we will be your soldiers. And so on these 400 ragtag ruffians from all over the country, from all different backgrounds, become the nucleus of the men that David will lead and train and hone and polish into an elite band of fighting men who will eventually become the leaders in the kingdom that he will one day, who is one day destined to have. In the kingdom he is destined to have. These are his future leaders in his kingdom. You know, some people don't give their heart to the Lord by making the excuse, oh, I would give my heart to Christ, but I'm not all I ought to be yet. I need to clean myself up. I need to get myself straightened up first. Listen, friend, that is one of the best reasons for you to come to Christ. You don't come to Christ because you are all you ought to be. You come to Christ because you are not all you ought to be. Jesus Christ is the one and only source of true, genuine, long-lasting happiness. And you come to him the way you are and let him make you who you ought to be. If there is anyone today who is in distress or is under pressure, well, let me tell you, we are living in a day of pressure, and people have more pressures today than any other time in this earth's history. Is there anybody here in debt? You don't need to raise your hand, but just let your mind. Are you in debt? Anyone here with financial problems? Is there anybody here with too much money? If there is, see me after the service. Anybody here who is discontented with life? Anybody here who has restlessness of soul? And you're really not sure why it even is that you're taking up space on this earth? Do you feel cheated with life? Is there a hole in your heart that you just can't seem to fill it? Well, let me give you some good news, friend. Jesus Christ, who created your heart, knows just exactly how to fill that big hole in it, and only he can satisfy your soul. So what do you say? You just come and cast your lot with Jesus today. I'll give you that chance in just a few moments. Well, as we continue on down through chapter 22, it's really quite a tragic picture. And it just shows us some of the trials that David has to endure. But the scene quickly switches back to Paul there in verse 6. And at this point, King Saul is having a little pity party for himself. And he's feeling sorry. But then word gets to him where David is. And Saul calls in all his staff around him, and he starts to chew them out and cry on their shoulder all at the same time. You ever had a boss like that, where he chews you out and cries on your shoulder all at the same time? What a guy to work for. But Saul is so full of hate for David, he won't even say his name. He won't even say David's name. He just calls him that son of Jesse. And so he says, do you think he would ever take care of you the way I do? In verse 8, he continues, and there is none that is sorry for me. But in verse 9, guess who speaks up? Doeg with his list. And good old Doeg says, I've got something to tell you. And he begins to talk, and he brings out his list, and he tells everything that's on his list, everything that happened in the tabernacle that he saw. How that David came flying in all hungry, and how he took the showbread and Goliath's sword, and what Ahimelech did and gave him. And after Doeg got through telling King Saul this juicy story, Saul was in absolute rage, and he sends for the high priest Ahimelech and all the other priests too. And when all the priests are brought from Nob and standing before King Saul, he challenges them concerning their conduct with his arch enemy David. Well, high priest Ahimelech makes a beautiful speech to the king, and he eloquently defends David. Just look at verse 14. He says, and who is so faithful among all thy servants as David? But no beautiful words are going to assuage King Saul's anger and his malice for David. And when the priest of God lined up before him, King Saul shouts to his guards, kill them all! But as the guards hesitate for further instructions of exactly how and when, in verse 18, Saul says to Doeg, turn thou and fall upon the priest. And that's the command that good old Doeg has been waiting for. And without hesitation, he begins hacking away at the priest of God, and Doeg doesn't stop swinging his sword until all the holy priest of God lie massacred on the floor. All 85 priests